Chapter 1. Willa crept through the darkened forest, following the faint scent of chimney smoke on the midnight air. The silver strands of the clouds passing in front of the moon cloaked her movements in shadow, and she made little sounds stepping across the cold, wet leaves she felt beneath her bare feet. All during the night she'd been moving down the slope of the mountain into the small valley where the homesteaders lived. When she came to the rocky edge of the river, she knew she was getting close to what she'd come for. She didn't know the river's mood here, so she avoided the dark and dangerous currents by climbing up through the gnarled limbs of the craggy old trees and asking for their help. As the branches reached out over the water to hold her, they rustled in the wind, talking to one another as if concerned about where she was going. Her tunic of woven green cane flexed with the movements of her body as she climbed, the branches of the trees holding her gently, intertwining wrist and arm, ankle and leg, then letting go in turn, helping her across with the care that they would give a sapling granddaughter. She made her way hand over hand above the misty breath of the tumbling river, then slithered down a trunk on the other side. "Thank you," she whispered to the trees, touching one's bark with the palm of her hand as she left them behind her. Passing a tranquil pool of starlit water among the stones at the river's edge, she glimpsed her reflection, a 12-year-old will-o'-wisp of a forest girl with long dark hair, a rounded face with streaked and spotted skin, and emerald green eyes. Unlike most of her clan, who coveted the glittering treasures of their enemies and even wore their deadened clothes, Willa wore no fabric or jewelry of any kind that might flash in the gloom. Wherever she went into the forest, her skin and hair and eyes took on the color and appearance of the green leaves around her. If she paused near the trunk of a tree, she turned so brown and barken that she became nearly invisible. And now, as she looked into the water, she saw her face for just a moment before it took on the color of the water and the nighttime sky above her, and she disappeared, her dark blue cheeks dotted with glistening stars. Continuing toward what she'd come for, Willa slunk low and quiet through the mountain laurel, up the gentle rivering slope, her heart beating slow and steady as she approached the homesteader's lair. She came from a clan of forest people that the Cherokee called the Old Ones, and told stories about around their campfires at night. The white-skinned homesteaders referred to her kind as night thieves, or sometimes night spirits, even though she was as flesh and blood as a deer, a fox, or any other creature of the forest. But she seldom heard the true name of her people. In the old language, which she only spoke with her grandmother now, her people were called the Farron. Willa stopped at the edge of the forest and blended her skin into the surrounding textures of green. Tendrils of leaves wrapped around her. She became all but invisible. The soft sounds of the night's insects and frogs surrounded her, but she stayed alert, wary of beady-eyed dogs, hidden watchmen, and other dangers. She gazed toward the lair of the homesteaders. They had built it with the cut-up carcasses of murdered trees nailed one to the other in long slabs. The bodies of the dead trees made flat walls with square corners, unlike anything else in the forest. "Just get what you came for, Willa," she told herself. The lair had a high, slanted rooftop, a large railed porch that came around the front, and a chimney made of jagged rock that the homesteaders had broken from the bones of the river. She saw no oil lamps or candlelight in the windows, but she knew from the thin line of gray smoke drifting from the chimney that the homesteaders, who she sometimes called the day folk because they retreated into their lairs when the sun went down, were probably sleeping inside in their long, flat, pillowed beds. She knew from experience that the homesteaders in this area locked the doors of their lairs at night, so she had to be clever. Through an open window? Down a chimney? She studied the lair for a long time, looking for a way in, and then she saw it. In the lower part of the front door, the owner of the lair had fashioned a smaller door for his white-fanged companion to come and go, and that was his mistake. Her heart began to pound, for her body knew the time had come, and the leaves withdrew from around her. She emerged from the cover of the forest and quickly darted across the open grass area that surrounded the lair. She hated open areas. Her legs felt strange and uneven as she ran across the naturally flat ground. She dashed up the steps to the wooden porch. Then she slipped down onto her hands and knees, pushed through the little door, and crawled into the darkened lair to begin the night's take.